Okay, we should be live and ready to go.
Okay, just a minute, I dropped all my papers. Okay, I called the meeting to order of the Yankton City Planning Commission. It's a little after 5:30 on Monday, September 14th, 2020. Brooke, can we have a roll call, please?
Andy.
Andy here.
Mooney.
Mooney here.
Speck.
Speck here.
Peterson.
Peterson here.
Chairman Peer. Chairman Peer?
Yep, Pierre here.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have a quorum for business. The next item on the agenda is the consideration of the August 10, 2020 meeting minutes. They're included with your agenda packet, or your meeting packet, rather. If you've had time to review those, are there any corrections or additions? Or is there a motion regarding those minutes?
Speck, I'll move to accept those minutes.
For a second?
Mooney second. Peterson second.
Brooke, did you get that?
Yes, I sure did. I put Mooney as seconded.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
All in favor of the motion to approve the meeting minutes? I guess we do roll call on these because of the format that we have, don't we? So let's do a roll call regarding the motion to approve the minutes.
Okay. Mooney.
Mooney votes aye.
Mooney, aye. Speck.
Speck, aye.
Speck, aye. Peterson.
Peterson aye.
Peterson, aye. Andy.
Andy aye.
Andy, aye. And Chairman Peer.
Pierre, aye.
Peer, aye.
Okay, the motion's approved and those minutes are accepted or approved. Are there any, is there anybody that has appeared at the commission room for the public?
We have one person in attendance for one of the agenda items later in the meeting.
Okay. I assume they're able to hear me, Dave?
Yeah.
Okay. Our procedure, such as it is with this modified meeting format that we have, is when the agenda item that you are present to address comes up, we'll first have an explanation by staff. I'll ask commission members if they have any questions or comments they want to make regarding the agenda item. And then I'll allow you an opportunity to identify yourself by name, your address, and you can talk to the commission. Okay? All right, so let's move on to the consent item that's on the agenda. This is the time to establish the next regular meeting as a date for a public hearing to consider a rezoning from R4 multiple family residential to B2 highway business on Lot 1 of Outlot C of Moderator Outlots and the east 370 feet of Lot 10 of Tucker's Third Edition and Parcel B in the northwest quarter of Section 17, Township 93 North, Range 55, as measured on the line dividing said two parcels, all being in the city and county of Yankton, South Dakota. Joseph and Roberta Kleinschmidt, owners. The address is the west side of the 100 block of Ferdig Avenue. Was there a motion to set the next meeting, regular meeting date, as when we hear this consent item?
This is Andy, so moved.
Did we get a second?
Peterson, second.
Thank you. Good. Roll call on this item, please.
Yes, Speck.
Speck, aye.
Speck, aye. Peterson.
Peterson, aye.
Peterson, aye. Wenandy.
Andy, aye.
Wenandy, aye. Mooney.
Mooney, aye.
Mooney, aye. And Chairman Pierre?
Pierre, aye.
Pierre, aye.
All right, that motion is passed, and that item will be heard at our next regular meeting of the Planning Commission. We'll move on to old business. The first action item for this evening's meeting is this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider a rezoning from I-1 Industrial to B3 Central Business on Block 69, Lower Yankton, addition to the City of Yankton, South Dakota. Drotzman Construction LLC owner. The address is the south side of the 600 block of East 4th Street. And included with your packet is an explanation and information regarding the proposed rezoning and a plat of the area that the rezoning affects. And so turn it over to staff for any comments regarding this item.
So over the last almost 20 years now since the comprehensive plan was adopted, we've had a series of incremental rezonings. You might remember that the comp plan includes a transition from the older industrial uses downtown to more of a downtown business mixed use residential land use plan. So as projects have moved forward and as property owners have requested, we have, based on the ordinance as adopted in the comprehensive plan, moved forward considering rezonings. Essentially on site, what it does is it changes an industrial district to a downtown B3 Central Business District. What's the difference? The difference is in an industrial district, there would be more high intensity, active, noisy, industrial types of uses that would be permitted there. And the one thing that would absolutely not be permitted there would be residential occupancies, where in a B3 Central Business District, which is what it's proposing to change to match the rest of downtown, the higher intensity, noisy types of industrial occupancies would not be permitted, and all commercial occupancies plus mixed use residential would be allowed on that block. So based on the documents set forth as considered since the adoption of the comp plan, staff definitely recommends approval of the proposed rezoning as presented to B3 Central Business District. And I'd be happy to try and answer any questions you may have.
So Dave, as I drove by that property on my way to my office, I noticed that there was a sign on the adjacent sidewalk regarding the rezoning. Have there been any comments from, and then I noted in your summary, but anything since then about the rezoning?
So we have had several people call in with questions about it, and those were just that. They were just informational inquiries. There was nobody that said they were an opponent of the proposed rezoning. Everybody I talked to after the explanation of what was happening thought that it was a good idea. So I do understand that we have one other person that walked into the room right now. I don't know if it was about this item or not, but when we get to that point in the discussion. But there were no active opponents of the proposal on this rezoning.
I guess just so the commission has the information, can you expand a little more on the type of comments that you were getting or the inquiries that you were getting on this?
I sure can. They were very basic. Essentially, what does this mean? What's allowed there now that wouldn't be? And what would be allowed if this changes that is not allowed there now? And essentially the difference is there would be no ability for there to be a residential occupancy the way it is now, and there would be the ability to have higher intensity industrial types of uses if it stays the way it is now. And again, if it changes, it would be geared more towards downtown commercial without the higher intensity industrial uses, and it would also permit some residential occupancies also. And that was, you know, a couple of the questions a couple of the people that called in just asked me what's going on and didn't really follow up with any comments or questions. They were just basically said, okay, thanks for the information.
Okay, with that, open it up for any questions or comments from commission members. I'm not hearing anybody speak up. Is there someone that's at the commission meeting room that wishes to comment about this agenda item? Okay.
I know we have people there for the next one, so.
All right.
Chairman
And then, have there been any, I guess, call-ins or anybody on YouTube or that has any comments?
We have no YouTube comments on this issue. I did hear Commissioner Peterson ask a question.
Yes, this is Len Peterson. Hey, I was just looking at this, and are we talking the rezoning is the portion on the west side, or is it all of that unit?
The rezoning is the entirety of Block 69, the entire area between 3rd Street, 4th Street, Peacock Street, and Burley Street.
Got it. Is it typical that a building is being built and then you rezone it? Or what can you tell me on that, how that happened or went about?
So the reason that happened in this instance is the construction that's occurring there right now would be permissible in either district. It'd be permissible in the current I-1 district as a commercial occupancy, and it would also be permitted in the B3 district. So they were moving ahead with that project regardless of how this turned out. And we, based on the current zoning, were able to issue that part of the permit for that phase.
Got it. Good explanation. Thank you.
Any other comments? Including public?
Andy, I would make the motion to approve the rezoning from I-1 to B3.
For a second?
Mooney will second that motion.
Motion made and seconded to approve the proposed rezoning from I-1 Industrial to B3 Central Business. Roll call, please.
Peterson.
Peterson, aye.
Peterson, I. Wenandy.
Andy, aye.
Wenandy, I. Mooney.
Mooney, aye.
Mooney, I. Speck.
Speck, abstain.
Speck abstained. And Chairman Peer.
Appear aye.
Thank you.
That issue item or that agenda item has been approved by the Planning Commission, and it'll go to the City Commission to establish a date for a public hearing, and then they will proceed with further activity or action on this rezoning request. The second action item that we have tonight is the time and place for a public hearing to consider a conditional use permit for a self-storage facility in a B2 highway business on outlots 19A, 20, and 20A, Modregger outlots in the city of Yankton, South Dakota. Michael Hatcheski, owner, address 803 Ferdig Avenue. Again, your agenda packet contained information regarding the conditional use request, and again, a map, an overhead map with some conceptual drawings of and the diagrams of the proposed development or building. So staff, Dave, do you care to, or do you have any further information on this?
So with your patience for a few moments, I know that there's at least one person in the audience that's there for this issue, so I'm going to kind of take a few minutes and walk through what a conditional use permit is, and so that those in attendance there can also can hear that. As Chairman Peer described, it's a conditional use permit so that the owner would be able to, of course, subject to all other building permit requirements, construct and operate a self-storage facility on the site. That doesn't mean they have to, that they could build a metal building, and this would allow them the ability to rent it out as a self-storage facility. It already is zoned appropriately as a B2 highway business district that they could simply just build the building and run a business out of it. It's zoned appropriately for that already, so that they wouldn't even need to be here for that request. The conditional use permit by nature is something that is permitted if a set of criteria or conditions is met during construction. So in an instance like this, the criteria include any doors shall not face adjacent residentially zoned property. So in this case, that means there could be no overhead garage doors facing west towards residentially zoned property. It would also mean that any lighting for the facility would not be allowed to spill over onto adjoining residentially zoned property. Obviously, the basics of any construction requirement are they have to deal with stormwater management so as not to impact adjoining properties beyond the historic flow rates leaving the site already. And essentially that's it. If they meet those criteria, that is when, based on our code, a conditional use permit can be considered for approval. This is a quasi-judicial issue, so our discussion, should follow along the lines of what's in the ordinance. If there's other code enforcement related issues associated with property maintenance or anything like that. We have other ordinances in place to address those items. So with that, I'd be willing to try and answer any questions anybody may have.
I just wanted to know that when I read the agenda item, I had indicated that Michael Hatchesky is the owner, and then when I look at the conditional use request, it's got Mike Hatchesky Rentals LLC as the owner. So I think maybe we need to make sure the record is clear on who the owner is.
So Mike Hatchesky Rentals LLC is technically the owner of record at the Register of Deeds. Michael Hatchesky was the applicant. Of course, it's the same person. Not to be confused with the owner of the property north of here, which is a different Hatchesky, separate owner, same last name.
Any questions or comments from the commission? Dave, what is the zoning of the property surrounding that? I know you said to the west it was residential. Is the rest of it all B2 or industrial, or exactly what are we looking at here?
So to the north is B2 Highway Business, which is the same zoning district that this property is guided by. And to the east and south are I-1 industrial properties.
Okay. Again, any comments or questions by commission? I don't think I heard anything. Is there anyone that's present in the commission room or by call-in or YouTube that wishes to comment on this?
Yeah, hi. I am John Bellert. I am the owner of the residential house that is to the west of that said lot. What I'm concerned about is, granted, I have a few issues with the Hatchesky storage unit to the north of there. That can be taken care of later. What I'm concerned about is this guy going to be take care of the property. I know that the residential house is pretty low. We do have issues with flooding there. And they are also worried about the light pollution, I don't know if you'd call that, and the height of the building. They're worried about that. And there was something else, and I think I got it all. And the value of the residence, because that's my residence. And we have issues with Stockman's to the south, and now with it all being storage units in that area, is that going to decrease the value of my property? That's what concerns me, I guess.
Dave, do you want to address at least one of those concerns regarding, I would call it the ordinance enforcement part of the adjacent property?
Yeah, if we have code enforcement issues with overheight grass or junk or debris stored outside on any properties, that's something definitely Mr. Beller get in touch with me on, and we can have our code enforcement folks go take a look at that and address those issues. We have another section of the code that allows us to have influence in those ways. The water issue that you specifically mentioned, I know the owner has an engineer under contract to design the stormwater management plan for the site. So if there's a little bit of water coming off the site that heads west, that amount would have to be maintained at the amount that's leaving the site going that direction now. This project would not be allowed to increase the amount of water going that way. And they have an engineer who's going to design a stormwater management system, and there'll be a stamped set of plans that says that they're managing it correctly and detaining it and releasing it at historic rates in every direction, including west. And the lighting definitely is one of the biggest factors we always hear about from residences near these facilities is, no lighting in excess of what would be residential in nature can leave the site going to the west. So obviously the lighting, the way this configuration looks, would be substantially on the east side of the building, and we'll make sure to follow through with them if this permit gets approved.
Okay, and then also I remembered too that they were concerned about they had an incident with their son vehicle was stolen. Granted, I know this has nothing to do with it, and it was up in T or Harrisburg, I believe, is where the vehicle wound up, and what the thieves were doing was stealing from storage units, and they ended up congregating into a storage unit in T where stockpiling it. They're also worried about that kind of trouble, I should say, brought to that area with the storage units in that area. I don't know if that made sense to anyone.
I totally understand what you're saying, and I can definitely, talk to the PD about the police department about those issues, and that would be a crime that we would want to address at any location. But I understand what your comment is, and we'll make sure it's entered in the record.
Okay. I think that was, well, granted, this is the first time I've ever done something like this too, so I'd be more happy if they just bought the house and I don't have to worry about it anymore. But
you did a really good job as a public presenter, especially under these circumstances. I really appreciate you coming to the meeting.
All right, thanks.
Does that prompt any comments or questions by the commission?
Dave, one question I had is, looking at the prints or the conceptual drawings, this doesn't look like a typical storage unit. And I think in your comments you even referenced that, it may not look like a typical storage unit. Is there, is it going to be a typical storage unit, or maybe that doesn't matter with the use permit as you described it, but just out of curiosity, if nothing else?
So I think his goal is to have it be a convertible space. And I think he wants to have it available for whatever purpose that's allowed under the code that would, best market it for him. So, he has had some people interested in running a business out of there, and that's kind of, when you look at the configuration, it looks kind of more like a business sort of occupancy. So he wants to set it up so it can be convertible and used either way, which I give him some credit for that, because at least it means he might do something a little more aesthetically pleasing than what the minimum our ordinance would require. So I think he's just trying to have the flexibility to have multiple opportunities for marketing the rental. And I know there's one other person in the room. I don't know if they were there for this item.
Is there anybody else in the room that wishes to or wants to address this item? And then following up on Brad's comment, if he were to not use it as a storage facility and convert it in one way or another to a business, that would already be allowed under the zoning that exists on the property at this time. Is that correct?
That is correct. He could essentially build the building identical to what you see represented, put an office in the front of it, and that would be code compliant without any consideration by the Planning Commission or City Commission.
Okay, unless there's any further comments from commission or public, and I don't know if I asked about anything on YouTube or anywhere else.
We have no YouTube comments on this item at this time.
Then, is there a motion to regarding this action item?
This is Mooney. I'll make that motion to approve.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Peterson, second.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve action item number 2, the conditional use permit for a self-storage facility in a B2 highway business. Roll call, please.
Winandy,
Winandy, aye.
Winandy, aye. Mooney,
Mooney, aye.
Mooney, aye. Speck,
Speck, aye.
Speck, aye. Peterson,
Peterson, aye.
Peterson, aye. And Chairman Peer.
Here, aye.
Peer, aye.
Right, that motion is passed, and this will go to the City Commission. 2020 for a final decision. So we'll move on to the third action item, which is the public hearing to consider a rezoning from B2 highway business to R4 multiple family residential and R2 single family residential on that portion of the following property lying south of 25th Street: the east half of the southeast quarter, except the east 700 feet in section 2, and the 23rd Street and West City Limits Road right-of-way adjacent to the described property and extending east to the current City of Yankton corporate limits. Parens right-of-way located in sections 2, 11, and 12, close parens, all in Township 93 North, Range 56 West of the 5th Principal Meridian, Yankton County, South Dakota. Yankton Development Enterprises, LLC. Kelly Nielsen, President, owner. Location, southern part of Phase 2, Westbrook Estates. And you have information from staff and a plat of the property. So Dave, anything else that you wish to add?
Not really, unless there's questions. It's a continuation of the residential, conversion to residential, that area that was kind of a remnant of our old extraterritorial jurisdiction that was zoned B2 highway business. So this actually is a down zoning to reduce the intensity of use on the site from highway business to 2 different types of residentially zoned property that would allow the occupancies that are described.
Any comments or questions regarding this action item from the commission? Are there any public comments?
have nobody on YouTube Live that wishes to comment about this item. Unless there's somebody in the room, I don't believe there are.
If there aren't any questions or comments, is there a motion regarding this agenda item?
So when Andy, I'd make a motion to approve the rezoning.
Speck, second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the rezoning as described in your meeting packet. Roll call, please.
Mooney,
Mooney, aye.
Mooney, aye. Speck,
Speck, aye.
Speck, aye. Peterson,
Peterson, aye.
Peterson, aye. Wenandy,
When Andy, aye.
Wenandy, aye. And Chairman Pierre?
Your aye.
Pierre, aye.
The motion is passed. It will go to City Commission on September 28th to establish a date for public hearing in front of that body. And so we are at the point in the meeting where we adjourn signed aye, and that means that I turn this meeting over to Dave.
Could we just get a motion to adjourn first and a second, please?
Peterson,
When Andy, second.
And roll call on that, Brooke, please.
Speck,
Speck, aye.
Speck, aye. Peterson,
Peterson, aye.
Peterson, aye. Wenandy,
When Andy, aye.
Wenandy, aye. Mooney,
Mooney, aye.
Mooney, aye. And Pierre,
Your aye.
Pierre, aye.
Okay, that officially ends a couple months late, albeit, the 2019-2020 term of the Planning Commission, or year of the Planning Commission. So we are now entering the 2020/2021 Planning Commission, and with that, would like to welcome Commissioner Mark Mooney back. He volunteered to serve another term and was recommended by the mayor for appointment and was appointed. And we also have new members, Evie Syme and Sean Womble, who have joined us. So we have them on camera also. I wish we were in person in the room so we could maybe spend a little more time introducing ourselves. But Evie, do you want to just take a minute and give us a little bit of background on how long you've been in Yankton and what's your interest in the Planning Commission?
Yes, thank you, Dave. I was actually born in Yankton, South Dakota, right there at Sacred Heart Hospital. My family has been in the area for many generations. In fact, we can trace our roots back to the first log cabin in the Missouri River bottom, South Meckling. And we moved away, my family moved away to Las Vegas when I was 4, and I grew up there, went to school there. I have a bachelor's degree in earth science from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And then I decided I wanted to slow my life down a little bit and return to the place of my roots. So in my 20s, I moved back to Yankton, South Dakota, and I worked for the U.S. Geological Survey at the research station down by the fish hatchery, and I spent a lot of time working on the river and doing a lot of interesting work down there. And I met my husband. Brett Syme is a teacher at Yankton High School, and got a couple of wonderful kids. And I really believe in serving your community in one way or another. I think it's part of everyone's job to work together and to help Yankton become the greatest place to live. And so I had this opportunity to join the Planning Commission, and thank you, Deb Specht, for making me aware of it, and Dave for helping me along. And thanks to the mayor for appointing me to this position.
Very good. Sean?
Hi. I know my name on the screen says Timothy. That is indeed my first name. I do go by Sean. That is my middle name. My whole life, that's just kind of how it's been. My parents always called me Sean, so I'm not sure why they named me Timothy in the first place. I work in applied engineering. I'm an electromechanical technician there, which is fancy word for saying I fix the machines that cut aluminum there. My wife and I moved here 8 years ago from Southern California, so moving here was a huge change for us. But we ended up really, really loving it here. Our plan was 2 years here and then kind of move on. But we love it so much, it's been 8. So, and kind of like Evie there, serving my community is really important to me, and that's why I'm here. And thank you to the mayor and Dave and everyone else involved for putting me here.
Well, I'm sure you'll all get to know each other better as we get back to a regular meeting format, hopefully sooner rather than later. But in the meantime, it's that time of year again where I'd open the floor up for motions for chair of the 2020-2021 Planning Commission. Nominations. Did I say motions? Nominations for chair. Don't be all too excited.
This is Len Peterson. I would nominate Steve Peer if he's willing.
And are there any other nominations for chair? Hearing none, do we have a motion for nominations to cease and a unanimous ballot be cast for Steve Peer?
Spec, so moved.
Who seconded that? I'm sorry.
Sign seconds.
Okay, Brooke, let's do a roll call, just because I don't know if we should or not, but let's do a roll call whenever we're in doubt.
Okay, you bet. Wenandy.
Wenandy, aye.
Wenandy, aye. Mooney.
Mooney, aye.
Mooney, aye. Speck.
Spec, aye.
Speck, aye. Peterson.
Peterson, aye.
Peterson, aye. Syme.
Syme, aye.
Syme, aye. Womble.
Womble, aye.
Womble, aye. And Peer.
Here, I guess so.
Okay.
At that point, it's your meeting, Mr. Chair.
I said I was done with this last year, you know. Okay, so we have to have a vice chair. So are there any nominations for vice chair of the commission?
I would nominate Brad Wenandy. This is Spec.
I'll second that. This is Womble.
Is there so we need a roll call on the nomination for Brad Wenandy as vice chair of the planning commission. So Brooke?
Okay. Mooney.
Mooney, aye.
Mooney, aye. Speck.
Spec, aye.
Speck, aye. Peterson.
Peterson, aye.
Peterson, aye. Syme.
Syme, aye.
Syme, aye. Womble.
Womble, aye.
Womble, aye. Wenandy?
How'd that go, Steve? I guess so. something like that.
Okay, I'm going to put you down for aye. Wenandy, aye. And Pierre.
Your aye.
Pierre, aye.
Okay. Congratulations, Brad. And welcome back to the vice chair position.
And same to you, Mr. Chairman.
So we finished with that part of the meeting, and we have no new business that I see on the agenda unless something's come up, Dave? No? So the only other item is a kind of a review of the August 2020 building report, which was kind of exciting to see all these single-family homes popping up around town. So go ahead, Dave. Comment on it.
Yeah, so we issued 17 permits for single-family homes in August. Based on our modern history or recent history, that's a 1 month record. And when I say that, I mean, since the advent of computers and spreadsheets. I'm guessing if we could somehow go back in time, there's some post-war era, startup month where more new single-family homes were started than that. But 17 is a huge number for Yankton or for any community our size. That puts us at 75 housing units for the year. Now, when I say that, I mean total units, not just single-family homes. But really, when we're thinking about the census and housing units, we're counting every type, not just one specific type. So 75 is a really good number. 63 is our 10-year running average. So we've already beat our 10-year average as far as home unit construction. There's another 7 or 8 that I know of that are on deck and are hopeful of pulling permits this year. I don't mean to sound negative, but I would expect that to slow down a little bit here, not just because of the season, but because construction prices have just gone crazy in the last 4 or 5 weeks, and the hurricane season is not going to help that at all. So I'm guessing we're going to feel a little bit of a slowdown for permits being pulled for not just new homes, but remodels and siding and everything, because the prices are just kind of out of market range right now. But with that, I'd be happy to answer or try to answer any questions you may have about the building permit report.
Jim, not heard any questions from anybody? So, is there a motion we adjourn the meeting?
Peterson, so move.
Second?
But Andy, second.
It's been seconded to adjourn the meeting. Brooke, roll call, please.
Peterson.
Peterson, aye.
Peterson, aye. Syme.
I'm aye.
Syme, aye. Womble.
Womble, aye.
Womble, aye. Wenandy.
Andy, aye.
Wenandy, aye. Mooney.
Mooney, aye.
Mooney, aye. Speck.
Specht, aye.
Speck to aye. And Pierre.
Here, aye.
Pierre,
The
aye.
Excuse me, the meeting is adjourned, and we will see you next month unless the format changes. So have a good September.
Thank you.